Forget the groundhog and its shadow. This is a better sign of spring where I am in the eastern US, the mass emergence and activity of ground nesting bees. In some grassy patches of schoolyards and parks, piles of soil appear. They're the signs of busy bees excavating and emerging from their burrows where they've spent the past year developing to adulthood. These two bees are part of the dense aggregations of ground nests I've come across this spring. The one on the left is a cellophane bee in the genus Colletes. Their name comes from the cellophane-like material they produce to waterproof their nests. There are 25 species of this bee in North Carolina alone, and around 100 in North America. In appearance, their fuzziness and size make them kinda similar to honeybees, but their nesting behavior and activity set them apart. They do, however, share spring nesting habits with these, mining bees in the genus Andrena. Mining bees also occur in spring aggregations of ground nests, sometimes in the same place as the cellophane bees. Their behavior and nesting ecology is so similar to that of cellophane bees that I couldn't tell which was which until I took them back to the lab and got a look at them underneath the microscope. Now, both of these bees, when they become active in these aggregations, represent huge concentrations of resources that other organisms try to exploit. In fact, here you'll see me poke a pine needle down one of the nest entrances, and instead of a big hairy cellophane or mining bee, what comes out is a slender wasp-like creature. This is a bee in the genus Nomada, a parasitic cuckoo or nomad bee. These are nest parasites you can find in and around these ground nest aggregations. Nomad bees are slender and lack the pollen-collecting hairs of other ground nesting bees. That's because they don't gather pollen to provision a nest. Instead, they sneak into the nest of another bee and lay their eggs. Their eggs hatch, and the nomad bee larvae sets off to destroy the resident bee larvae and take over their food provisions. The nomad bee stays in the nest to complete its own development and emerges as an adult the next season to start the cycle over again. To my surprise, my local ground nesting bee spots had tons of these nomad bees, and it wasn't just this one species either. I saw at least 4 different ones in each aggregation I visited. I later looked up that there are hundreds of species in this genus all across the US and over 700 species worldwide. Some of them are tiny in comparison to cellophane or mining bees, and some might specialize on smaller ground nesting bees like sweat bees. Finding so many of these parasites impressed on me how ground nesting bees are more than just local pollinators. They're the basis of an entire ecosystem that other insects are dependent on. So besides filming these bees, one of my goals was to connect with a local expert to see what we're learning about them through research. It turns out the research is something we all can contribute to and help out with. I learned that by going out in the field with Dr. Hannah Levinson.
All the way up to the road, and everything here is just covered in all the nests. So we're in the Oakwood Cemetery near downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. We are here because we have found a very large aggregation of ground nesting bees, and we are trying to document and learn more about these bees. Easy like 20 to 25 nests in this 1 meter right here. When it's in full active season, it's almost like a cloud of bees over this, and sometimes that can be intimidating to people that don't know what to expect out of the behavior from these bees, but they're very tame and they don't sting. So this is one of 10 emergence traps that we have set up around the cemetery. Whoever overwintered in the ground will be collected by this. So we can see how many bees, what species, and what time period they came out in. So about 70% of all the bee species in the world nest underground. They're much more difficult to find, and then they're much harder to study because we only have a short time period where the adults are active. And they're very important pollinators for many of our early season plants. So we need to learn more about them so that we understand where they're nesting, what sorts of habitat they need, and then beyond that, how do we help protect their nesting sites once we have answers to many of those questions.
Hannah's monitoring project is part of a larger research effort called Project Ground Nesting Bees. The aim is to document activity and nesting aggregations all across the world through the iNaturalist platform. To get involved, get the iNaturalist app and do a project search for ground nesting bees, and join the project and add your observations of bees entering or exiting their nest. By contributing to this project, you'll help us learn and ultimately conserve these important pollinators and ecosystems. Thanks for watching.